Hi, this is Ahmad Ghannoum from Fortinet. As digital transformation sweeps through every industry, the attack surface grows dramatically, making security management increasingly difficult. Security teams struggle to keep up with too many vendors and too many alerts. Manual and slow response makes it even more difficult, and not to mention the cybersecurity skills gap. So, how does FortiSIM tackle these challenges? FortiSIM brings together security correlation and real-time analytics, performance and availability monitoring, user and entity behavioral analytics. Let's start with security correlation. In a typical environment, you would have your FortiSIM receiving logs from devices within your organization. Routers, switches, firewalls, servers, they're all sending logs to FortiSIM. FortiSIM receives the log, it analyzes them, correlates them, and it can generate incidents whenever it's required. On top of this, performance and availability monitoring is another function of FortiSIM. FortiSIM collects information from those devices like CPU, memory, disk utilization, interface utilization. It creates a baseline based on these metrics that are collected, these performance metrics, and any deviation from that baseline will generate certain incidents. FortiSIM also has the ability to monitor the availability of the device. Whenever a device is not available, FortiSIM can trigger certain incidents. It can even discover the configuration of a specific device. Another function would be the user and entity behavior analysis. This is where FortiSIM look into the user behavior on a specific endpoint. What is the user doing? What are the processes that are launched by the user? If the user is trying to install a specific software, if he's running a browser, if he's starting an application, running a hacking tool, all of this information will be collected, and the FortiSIM UEBA leverages machine learning and statistical methodologies to baseline a normal behavior. It incorporates real time actionable insights into anomalous user behavior regarding business critical data. One of the key differentiator of FortiSIM is the unified SOC and NOC analytics. By combining security events from servers, databases, routers, vulnerability scanners, and performance metrics like CPU, memory, interface utilization, FortiSIM will increase the functionality and the visibility, and it will reduce the time to respond. If we look at the specific use case like a slow response within a network, it could be simply just a network issue, or maybe it could be a security issue like a malware generating spike of traffic at a specific time and causing this slow response. Because of this cross correlation between NOC and SOC, FortiSIM can identify the problem easily, and it will reduce the time to respond. Another use case would be like an application, for example, a problem or a slow response within an application or an application malfunctioning could be just a result of a specific server hosting this application and not the application itself. FortiSIM also has the ability to discover certain such incidents. Another feature of FortiSIM is the automatic discovery. When we talk about automatic discovery, we have two types of automatic discovery. First of all, we have what we call the auto log discovery. The auto log discovery is a feature of FortiSIM that does not require any single configuration on FortiSIM itself. It basically consists of just generating logs by certain devices to FortiSIM. Whenever FortiSIM receives the log from that device, it will add the device to the configuration management database. So, for example, configure a router to send logs to FortiSIM, configure a switch or a security device like a firewall to send logs to 40SIM. As long as 40SIM is receiving logs, as soon as the 40SIM receives the first log from that specific device, it will add that specific device to the configuration management database. That device will be classified within the database as a firewall or as a router or as a switch, etc. The second automatic discovery would be pulling information from devices and telling 40SIM to go and query device information. And this is simply done by just giving 40SIM a bunch of IP address or a range of IP address and just tell it go and query devices within that specific range using certain access protocol like SNMP, SSH, HTTP, JDBC, etc. Once those devices are discovered, 40SIM start monitoring these devices. So it will classify also these devices within the configuration management database. Performance monitoring gives 40SIM the ability also to monitor the performance of the device. Look into things like CPU percentage, disk utilization, memory utilization. Excuse me. Um, Even it could look into interface utilization. It could check the configuration of a specific device, and it will do continuous monitoring of a specific assets. Once all of these assets are discovered, they are added into 40SIM's configuration management database. 40SIM will start collecting all of these metrics, all of these performance metric, and it will build the baseline, and any deviation from the baseline will be discovered by 40SIM. State monitoring. This is where 40SIM provide um, business services monitoring. So all of these assets that have been discovered by 40SIM and added to the configuration management database, 40SIM has a feature called business services. It allows you to take certain assets, group them together as a business service, and tell 40SIM to monitor them. So whenever there is issues or there are certain critical events from not only one asset, but any asset that belong to that specific business service group where all the assets are grouped, whenever there is an event or whenever there is a performance issue, 40SIM can generate incidents related to this critical business service. Risk monitoring. What is risk monitoring? Risk monitoring, it's basically a sophisticated set of contextual analytics applied to the data that's been collected in the configuration management database of 40SIM. What does risk scoring take in consideration? First of all, it look into the criticality of a specific asset. It looks at the vulnerabilities against this specific asset. It looks at the amount and severity of incident against that asset, or even against that a specific user. On top of this, threat intelligence feeds like 40 Guard Labs indicator of compromised services are consistently watching for matches to know like bad domains, bad IPs, bad URLs, etc. And geolocation data is also applied to external IP addresses to expose rule violations or anomalous communication that should be checked out. Now, behavioral analytics. 40SIM UEBA behavioral anomaly detection is a high fidelity way to gain visibility of end-to-end activity from endpoints all the way to on-premises servers and network activity to cloud applications. So this telemetry, like 40SIM's endpoint telemetry sensors, profile and baseline the users and also the devices using the same UEBA technology. UEBA understands what's normal. So it collects metrics, and it builds the baseline, so it understands now what's normal for the entity itself, for the users, like even for local users, for remote users. And rules can also be leveraged to alert on behaviors such as, for example, using USB drives to move data, or watch for interactions with specific websites. So by combining telemetry that is pulled from endpoint sensors, from network device flows, from servers and application logs, 40SIM is able now to build a profile of users, peer groups, endpoint applications, and files, and even networks. Automated response. Now, all the logs that have been collected by 40SIM have been analyzed. The performance monitoring also is taking place, and 40SIM is consistently monitoring the performance and availability of the device, the collection also of the user and entity behavior analytics. Now we got all of these logs, we had incidents, and what are we going to do with all of these logs? This is where 40SIM's remediation and automation comes into play. So you need to provide certain actions. So what you could do, for example, you could isolate certain device by blocking, for example, things on the firewall. You could integrate 40SIM with 40NAC network admission control to isolate certain devices. So there are remediation actions that could be automated within 40SIM to take certain action whenever an incident has been triggered. Now, for better orchestration, if you want the complete full picture of automation, orchestration, and accelerating the response, this is where you need 40SOAR. So to complement all of this solution, 40SOAR comes into play. What is 40SOAR? Before we talk about 40SOAR, let's look at a specific use case. Let's say, for example, we need to investigate a suspicious login attempt. So what usually happens here, like the security analyst look at an alert, for example, he looks at a specific alert for a suspicious login attempt, and he needs to investigate this specific alert. He starts looking into, for example, the user, if there's any user within the alert, what is the user ID, where is this user ID, what is the IP address, is it like a private IP address, or it's a public. If it's a public, he needs, for example, to take this investigation a step further by looking into indicator of compromise, by checking the source country of that specific IP address, by looking at the reputation of that specific IP address, and based on the reputation of the IP address, he might consult certain multiple threat intelligence or to look at the reputation, and based on this, the security analyst now will decide what action he wants to do. So, for example, he might need to, if it turns out to be malicious, he might need to block that IP on the firewall. He might need to create a specific policy to block that IP on the firewall. So this investigation, in the end, it's time consuming. It's taken effort and time. And imagine like we're dealing with one alert here. It may take about like 5 to 10 minutes. If you're investigating more and more alerts, so if looking at like 100 alerts per day, on an average of 5 minutes of investigation per alert, so you're looking at 500 minutes. That's a full day trying to investigate a suspicious login attempt. Another alerts, like other alerts, may take even more and more. So this is really time consuming. So imagine if you have a solution or a tool that can script the whole process that was done manually by this analyst, by this SOC analyst. Like a script, for example, that can do all the work, that can automate this process in a matter of seconds. Just look at the alert, extract the indicator of compromise, come up with a verdict, and take action. This is exactly where 40SOAR comes into play. And this is what Fortisor does. So by deploying Fortisor, by adding Fortisor to the solution, not only you're reducing alert fatigue, but also you're reducing the time to respond. You're addressing also the skills gap analysts, because sometimes certain analysts are not skilled enough to do the investigation, and they might need to wait or escalate it to an expert within the organization to take care of the investigation. And at the same time, you're reducing human error, because in the end, all the process is being automated. So how do we do this? How do we solve this? First of all, we ingest the logs. Fortisor ingest logs from SIM, from SIM, EDR, DLPs, endpoints, firewall. We have multiple connectors that can integrate with multiple vendor to ingest the data. Once the data has been ingested, this is where Fortisor now will do the triage. It will look at the data. It will aggregate certain events that are linked to a specific incident. You might have multiple alerts that are generated over a period of time, but they could be linked to one campaign, for example, or one specific targeted attack. So this is where Fortisor look into those, aggregate them together. It will do the triage. It will enrich the data. It will start the investigation process by extracting indicator of compromise, by enriching the data. It could do threat hunting, and then once that is done, and the FortiSIM identifies the malicious, for example, alert, it will take action. It will automate the process of enforcing certain action, certain remediation action. And this is where FortiSIM is responding in an automated way to take action based on a specific verdict. So this is basically what Fortisor is doing. Now, how do we do this? How do we automate the whole process? How do we take action? How do we remediate? FortiSIM uses like a playbook. Think about a playbook like a script that uses a graphical, logical workflow. So whatever, if we go back to the example of a SOC analyst investigating a suspicious login attempt and is doing the whole process manually, the playbook can automate the whole process, and in a matter of seconds, the playbook will look into the indicator of compromise. It will take action. It will integrate with, for example, the firewall. It will to block certain IP addresses. It could integrate with Active Directory to block an account. It could integrate, for example, with Exchange. If we thinking, for example, like a phishing email, let's say Fortisor is running a playbook to investigate a suspicious email. And once the playbook runs, it looks into the indicator of compromise, it looks into suspicious keywords, it checks the return path. It does everything that usually is done manually. It does it in a matter of second. And once that email, for example, is identified as suspicious, as malicious, what Fortisor can do now, it will take action. It will remediate. So one of the things that you could do when it comes to action, you could say, you could tell Fortisor to run the playbook and delete every single email that is malicious within your organization. So you could do threat hunting, look for a specific email. If it turns out to be malicious, Fortisor will delete any instance of that specific malicious email within your organization with simply with just like Exchange integration. Another use case, for example, what you could do, imagine like if a user is trying to log in and he mistyped his password many times, for example, what you could do, you could automate a process. If a user mistyped his password, for example, 5 times, Fortisor will send an email to his manager, asking the manager to validate with the user. And based on the response from the manager, Fortisor will take action. So Fortisor, for example, will block the user ID with Active Directory integration. After 5 suspicious login, it will send an email to the manager, and based on the response from the manager, either it will keep blocking the ID of that specific user, or it will unblock it. So there are tons of things that Fortisor can do in term of automation. There is no limit in term of what Fortisor can do. It's simply just creating a playbook, or automating certain process to take the remediation. Now, the playbooks are pre-built. They are shipped with Fortisor. When you purchase a product, Fortisor ships with built-in playbooks. There are over like 3,000 playbooks. The playbooks are already scripted for you. You could modify them. You could leave them the way you are. The way they are. You could create your own playbook. You could customize the playbook. The playbooks are creating a playbook is as simple as dragging and dropping certain action within the playbook, and tell Fortisor what you want it to do. So anything that you receive, any incident, any alert that is received, that is ingested by Fortisor, you can put it into action. How do we integrate with the other third-party vendor to take action? This is done via connectors. Fortisor ships with over 300 connectors that are available for data injection. Each connector ships with a set of playbooks that are predefined and scripted, just to make your life easier, to automate the process of taking certain actions whenever it's required. Custom connector support is also available. Connector SDK is also available. So Fortisor also include progressive case management. It has very informative dashboards and reporting. It includes sophisticated role-based access control, so you could create users, or assign user roles based on a specific access that you provide, and it's very granular when it comes to role-based access control. Playbook designers, we're looking at like 300 plus connector that ship with Fortisor along with their playbook. So for each connector, we have a set of playbook, and it's a very scalable solution. When it comes to architecture, we support also multi-tenancy with Fortisor. Now, in summary, 40SIM is a powerful single pane of glass, bringing together the NOC and SOC in a single configuration management database. 40SOAR, on the other hand, it's a security orchestration, automation, and response that remedies some of the biggest challenges facing cybersecurity teams today. This allows enterprises not only to adapt, but also to optimize their security processes. Integrated into this Fortinet security fabric, both Fortinet and Fortisor deliver the foundation for broad visibility, integrated security, and automated threat response. Thank you and have a great day.